Question 1. Regulatory review indicates that the Bayt University entrance exam aims to assess candidates' genuine academic capabilities through a standardized and fair process. Considering this, which of the following actions best upholds the integrity of the examination process and aligns with the university's regulatory framework for admissions? Option A. Ensuring all examination materials are securely handled and distributed according to strict protocol, and reporting any observed irregularities to the examination board immediately. Option B. Providing a slightly modified version of the exam to a candidate who claims to have a specific learning difficulty, without prior official approval from the university's disability services. Option C. Allowing a candidate to receive discreet assistance from a proctor during the exam if they appear to be struggling significantly with the questions. Option D. Sharing general themes and common question types with a candidate's family member who is an alumnus, with the understanding that they will relay this information to the candidate. The correct answer is A. Ensuring all examination materials are securely handled and distributed according to strict protocol, and reporting any observed irregularities to the examination board immediately. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable entrance exam results. The university's regulatory framework, as implied by the exam's context, likely emphasizes fairness, equal opportunity, and the accurate assessment of candidates' knowledge and aptitude. Misrepresenting a candidate's qualifications or providing unauthorized assistance directly undermines these principles. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the established examination rules and guidelines of Bayt University. This means ensuring that all candidates are assessed based on their own merits, and that no external or unfair advantages are provided. The regulatory framework for university entrance exams typically mandates transparency, impartiality, and the prevention of any form of academic dishonesty. Upholding these principles is paramount to maintaining the credibility of the examination process and the university itself. An incorrect approach would be to facilitate or overlook any form of cheating or misrepresentation. This could involve providing advance information about exam content, allowing unauthorized aids, or altering candidate records. Such actions violate the core ethical principles of educational assessment and are likely prohibited by the specific regulations governing Bayt University's entrance examinations. These regulations are designed to ensure a level playing field and to prevent individuals from gaining admission through dishonest means, which would devalue the qualifications of legitimate students and the reputation of the institution. The professional decision-making process in such situations requires a commitment to ethical conduct and a thorough understanding of the relevant university regulations. Professionals involved in the examination process must prioritize integrity, fairness, and transparency. When faced with a situation that could compromise these values, they should consult the official examination guidelines, report any suspected irregularities through the proper channels, and refuse to participate in or condone any form of academic misconduct. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are grounded in regulatory compliance and ethical responsibility. Question 2. Consider a scenario where a candidate applying to Bayt University for their entrance exam submits an essay that, upon initial review using a standard plagiarism detection software, shows a 15% similarity to various online sources. The university's entrance exam guidelines emphasize originality and proper citation. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Accept the essay as is, assuming the similarity percentage is within an acceptable range for entrance exams. Option B. Immediately disqualify the candidate for failing to meet the originality requirement. Option C. Request a revised essay from the candidate without investigating the existing one further. Option D. Conduct a manual review of the flagged sections to determine if the similarities are due to common phrases, proper citations, or unacknowledged borrowing. Correct answer is B. Immediately disqualify the candidate for failing to meet the originality requirement. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between academic integrity and the university's commitment to fair assessment. The challenge lies in discerning genuine academic merit from potential plagiarism, requiring careful judgment to uphold the university's standards without unfairly penalizing a student. The Bayt University entrance exam's regulatory framework, as it pertains to academic integrity and admissions, mandates a rigorous evaluation process that prioritizes originality and adherence to ethical scholarly conduct. The correct approach involves a thorough, multifaceted review of the submitted work, focusing on identifying similarities that go beyond common knowledge or acceptable citation practices. This approach aligns with the university's guidelines on academic honesty, which typically require evidence of original thought and proper attribution. Specifically, the university's regulations likely emphasize the importance of detecting unacknowledged borrowing of ideas or text, as this directly undermines the purpose of an entrance exam, which is to assess a candidate's own capabilities. The ethical imperative is to ensure a level playing field for all applicants and to maintain the credibility of the university's admissions process. An incorrect approach that relies solely on superficial similarity detection without considering context or intent would fail to meet the university's standards. Such an approach might flag common phrases or widely accepted concepts as plagiarism, leading to an unjust assessment. This disregards the nuanced nature of academic work and the importance of distinguishing between accidental oversight and deliberate deception. Another incorrect approach, which dismisses any detected similarity without further investigation, would be a dereliction of duty. This ignores the university's responsibility to uphold academic integrity and could allow unqualified or dishonest candidates to gain admission. A third incorrect approach, which immediately disqualifies the candidate upon the first indication of similarity, fails to allow for due process and the opportunity for the student to explain or rectify any potential issues, thereby violating principles of fairness. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific academic integrity policies of Bayt University. This involves a systematic review of submitted materials, utilizing available tools for similarity detection while critically evaluating the results in context. If potential issues arise, the framework dictates a process of further investigation, which may include seeking clarification from the applicant or consulting with academic integrity committees before making a final determination. This ensures that decisions are based on comprehensive evidence and adhere to established ethical and regulatory guidelines. Question 3. The risk matrix shows a candidate's application for the Bayt University entrance exam with a slightly below-average score in the primary entrance examination, but exceptionally strong performance in extracurricular activities and a compelling personal essay outlining their commitment to the university's values. According to the university's admission guidelines, which of the following approaches best reflects a fair and comprehensive evaluation process? Option A. Prioritize the entrance examination score above all other components of the application, as it is the most objective measure of a candidate's academic capability. Option B. Evaluate the applicant holistically, considering the entrance examination score in conjunction with the strength of their extracurricular achievements and the quality of their personal essay, as per the university's stated admission criteria. Option C. Reject the application outright due to the below-average score in the primary entrance examination, as this is the most critical determinant of academic readiness. Option D. Adjust the entrance examination score upwards to align with the strong extracurriculars and essay, assuming the applicant's potential outweighs the initial score. The correct answer is B. Evaluate the applicant holistically, considering the entrance examination score in conjunction with the strength of their extracurricular achievements and the quality of their personal essay, as per the university's stated admission criteria. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the fundamental principles of university admissions, specifically how to interpret and apply criteria in a fair and consistent manner, while also recognizing the potential for bias. The Bayt University entrance exam, like any academic institution, must adhere to its own established admission regulations and ethical guidelines to ensure equity and meritocracy. Careful judgment is required to balance the stated requirements with the need to identify candidates who will succeed academically and contribute positively to the university community. The correct approach involves a holistic review of the applicant's profile, considering all stated criteria and their relative importance as defined by the university's admission policy. This approach prioritizes a comprehensive understanding of the applicant's potential, moving beyond a single data point. It aligns with the ethical principle of fairness by evaluating candidates against a consistent set of standards and recognizing that diverse strengths can contribute to academic success. This method ensures that the admission process is not unduly influenced by a single factor, thereby promoting a more equitable selection. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on one criterion, such as a single test score, fails to acknowledge the multifaceted nature of academic potential and the university's stated admission requirements. This narrow focus can lead to the exclusion of otherwise qualified candidates who may excel in other areas or demonstrate significant potential that is not captured by that single metric. Ethically, it violates the principle of comprehensive evaluation and can be seen as arbitrary. Another incorrect approach that attempts to round up a score without a clear policy or justification introduces subjectivity and potential bias. This undermines the integrity of the admission process by creating an appearance of favoritism or inconsistency. It deviates from the established regulatory framework of the university's admission criteria. It should be applied objectively. A further incorrect approach that prioritizes anecdotal evidence or personal recommendations over documented academic performance and stated criteria disregards the established regulatory framework for admissions. While recommendations can offer supplementary insights, they should not supersede the objective criteria set forth by the university. This can lead to unfair comparisons and a departure from merit-based selection. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves first thoroughly understanding the university's admission regulations and guidelines. Then, one must critically evaluate the applicant's profile against each of these criteria, considering their relative weight. If ambiguities arise, seeking clarification from the admissions committee or relevant authorities is crucial. The ultimate goal is to make a decision that is both compliant with regulations and ethically sound, ensuring fairness and promoting the selection of candidates who best meet the university's standards. Question 4. The investigation demonstrates that a significant number of identical answers were submitted by multiple candidates in a specific section of the Bayt University entrance exam, raising concerns about potential collusion. The examination committee is tasked with determining the appropriate course of action. Which of the following represents the most ethically sound and procedurally compliant approach for the examination committee to take? Option A. Focus on the candidates who performed exceptionally well despite the identical answers, assuming they are the primary instigators of the collusion, and address them individually. Option B. Initiate a formal investigation into the suspected collusion, gathering all relevant evidence and following the established disciplinary procedures outlined in the Bayt University's examination regulations before making any decisions regarding the candidates involved. Option C. Immediately disqualify all candidates who submitted the identical answers, citing the high probability of cheating to maintain the integrity of the exam. Option D. Issue a general warning to all candidates about the seriousness of cheating, and then proceed with grading the exam as usual, assuming the similarities might be coincidental. The correct answer is B. Initiate a formal investigation into the suspected collusion, gathering all relevant evidence, and following the established disciplinary procedures outlined in the Bayt University's examination regulations before making any decisions regarding the candidates involved. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable results in a high-stakes university entrance examination. The need for careful judgment arises from the ethical obligation to uphold the fairness of the examination process, while also considering the potential impact on candidates. The Bayt University entrance exam, like any academic assessment, is governed by principles of fairness, transparency, and equal opportunity. Any deviation from these principles undermines the credibility of the institution and the value of the qualifications it confers. Correct approach involves a thorough and impartial review of all evidence, adhering strictly to the established examination regulations and guidelines of Bayt University. This approach prioritizes the integrity of the examination process by ensuring that any allegations of misconduct are investigated objectively and that decisions are based on factual findings and the university's specific rules. This upholds the ethical principle of justice and fairness, ensuring that all candidates are assessed on their own merit and that the examination remains a reliable measure of academic potential. Adherence to the university's established procedures for handling examination irregularities is paramount. An incorrect approach that involves immediately disqualifying a candidate based on unsubstantiated rumors or incomplete evidence fails to uphold the principle of due process. This action would be a direct violation of the university's regulations, which typically require a formal investigation and a hearing before any punitive measures are taken. Another incorrect approach, such as ignoring the allegations altogether due to time constraints or a desire to avoid controversy, constitutes a dereliction of duty. This failure to investigate breaches the ethical obligation to maintain a fair and secure examination environment and can lead to a compromised assessment outcome, potentially admitting unqualified candidates or unfairly penalizing others. A third incorrect approach, such as selectively applying examination rules based on perceived candidate background or potential, is discriminatory and fundamentally unethical, violating the core tenets of equal opportunity. Professionals in this situation should employ a structured decision-making framework. This begins with a clear understanding of the relevant university regulations and ethical codes governing examinations. Next, all available evidence must be gathered and meticulously reviewed. Allegations should be treated with seriousness, but also with a commitment to impartiality. A formal investigation process, as stipulated by the university, should be initiated if preliminary review suggests a potential violation. Decisions should be made based on the findings of this investigation and in strict accordance with the university's established procedures, ensuring fairness and transparency for all involved. Question 5. The analysis reveals that a candidate preparing for the Bayt University entrance exam is faced with a situation where they have forgotten a crucial formula during the examination. They notice another candidate discreetly looking at a small, pre-written note. Considering the strict regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines for the Bayt University entrance exam, which of the following actions best upholds academic integrity and exam regulations? Option A. The candidate should report the other candidate's actions to the invigilator immediately. Option B. The candidate should try to quickly glance at the other candidate's note to see the formula. Option C. The candidate should attempt to recall the formula from memory, focusing on their preparation, and if unable to do so, proceed with the questions to the best of their ability without the formula. Option D. The candidate should discreetly signal to the other candidate to share the information from their note. The correct answer is C. The candidate should attempt to recall the formula from memory, focusing on their preparation, and if unable to do so, proceed with the questions to the best of their ability without the formula. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the ethical imperative to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a university entrance exam, especially one as significant as the Bayt University entrance exam, can lead individuals to consider shortcuts. However, the university's regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines strictly prohibit any form of academic dishonesty, including the use of unauthorized aids. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation, prioritizing ethical conduct over immediate perceived gains. The correct approach involves a student relying solely on their own knowledge and preparation, adhering strictly to the examination rules and instructions provided by Bayt University. This aligns with the core principles of academic integrity, which are foundational to the educational mission of any reputable institution. Specifically, the university's guidelines for entrance examinations, which are implicitly part of its regulatory framework, mandate that all candidates must complete the exam independently and without recourse to external assistance. This approach ensures a fair assessment of each candidate's abilities and upholds the value of the qualification awarded by Bayt University. An incorrect approach would be to consult unauthorized materials during the exam. This directly violates the explicit rules of the Bayt University entrance exam, which are designed to ensure a fair and equitable testing environment. Such an action constitutes academic dishonesty, a serious offense that can lead to disqualification and damage to the student's academic record. Another incorrect approach would be to seek assistance from another candidate. This also undermines the principle of individual assessment and is a clear breach of examination regulations. A third incorrect approach would be to use pre-prepared notes or memorized information that was not part of the permitted study materials. This is a form of cheating, as it provides an unfair advantage and misrepresents the student's actual understanding. All these incorrect approaches fail to respect the established regulatory framework and ethical standards of the university. Professionals in academic settings, including students preparing for entrance exams, should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to rules and ethical conduct. This involves understanding the specific regulations governing the situation, assessing the potential consequences of any action, and choosing the path that upholds integrity and fairness. In this context, the framework would involve 1. Recognizing the explicit prohibition of unauthorized aids in the Bayt University entrance exam guidelines. 2. Understanding that academic integrity is a non-negotiable principle. 3. Evaluating the severe penalties for academic dishonesty. 4. Committing to a fair and honest performance based on one's own merit. Question 6. Benchmark analysis indicates that during the Bayt University entrance exam, a candidate was observed using a mobile phone to access notes that were not explicitly permitted by the examination instructions. Considering only the regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines specific to the Bayt University entrance exam, what is the most appropriate course of action for the invigilator? Option A. Ignore the incident, as the candidate did not appear to be actively communicating with anyone, and focus on other candidates. Option B. Immediately confiscate the mobile phone and report the incident to the examination board for a formal investigation according to university procedures. Option C. Confiscate the mobile phone and disqualify the candidate on the spot without further review. Option D. Issue a verbal warning to the candidate and allow them to continue the examination, assuming the notes were not directly related to the exam content. Correct answer is B. Immediately confiscate the mobile phone and report the incident to the examination board for a formal investigation according to university procedures. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's stated commitment to academic integrity and the potential for a student to exploit a loophole for personal gain. The entrance exam is a critical gatekeeping mechanism, and ensuring its fairness and validity is paramount. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the university's regulations in a way that upholds these principles, while also being just to the individual student. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between genuine misunderstanding and deliberate circumvention of rules. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the specific examination regulations of Bayt University. This would entail examining the official rulebook or guidelines provided to candidates, looking for explicit statements regarding the use of external aids, the definition of unauthorized assistance, and the consequences of violations. The university's regulatory framework is the sole authority here. The correct approach would be to identify if the student's actions, as described, constitute a violation according to these specific rules. If the regulations clearly prohibit the described action, then reporting it for investigation according to the university's established disciplinary procedures is the ethically and regulatorily sound path. This upholds the principle of equal treatment for all candidates and maintains the integrity of the examination process. An incorrect approach would be to make an assumption based on general knowledge of university exams, or to dismiss the incident without proper investigation. For instance, assuming that any use of a mobile phone is automatically cheating without consulting Bayt University's specific rules would be a regulatory failure. The university's framework might have nuanced definitions or specific exceptions. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the student directly and impose a penalty without following the university's prescribed disciplinary process. This bypasses established procedures and could lead to an unfair outcome or legal challenges. Furthermore, ignoring the incident entirely, perhaps due to a desire to avoid conflict or a belief that it is a minor issue, would be an ethical failure, as it undermines the commitment to academic integrity and potentially disadvantages other candidates who adhere to the rules. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a clear understanding of the governing regulatory framework. In this case, it is exclusively the Bayt University entrance exam regulations. The professional must then gather all relevant facts about the incident. Next, they should meticulously compare these facts against the specific provisions of the university's regulations. If a potential violation is identified, the next step is to follow the university's established procedures for reporting and investigation. This ensures fairness, due process, and consistency in the application of rules. Question 7. To address the challenge of ensuring academic integrity in the Bayt University entrance exam, A candidate submits an application that includes evidence suggesting they may have had access to previous versions of the exam questions and their solutions. The university's examination regulations strictly prohibit the use of any unauthorized materials or prior knowledge of exam content. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical principles governing university entrance examinations at Bayt University? Option A. Conduct a thorough investigation into the nature and extent of the candidate's access to prior exam materials, comparing it against the specific prohibitions outlined in the Bayt University entrance exam regulations, and then proceed with a decision based on the findings and the prescribed penalties. Option B. Ignore the evidence of prior access and process the candidate's application as normal, assuming their preparation was legitimate. Option C. Immediately disqualify the candidate from the entrance exam based on the mere suspicion of having prior access to exam materials, without further investigation. Option D. Allow the candidate to proceed with the exam, but implement heightened surveillance during the examination period. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough investigation into the nature and extent of the candidate's access to prior exam materials, comparing it against the specific prohibitions outlined in the Bayt University entrance exam regulations, and then proceed with a decision based on the findings and the prescribed penalties. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in academic settings, where students may seek to leverage existing knowledge or resources in ways that could be construed as academic misconduct. The core professional challenge lies in upholding the integrity of the Bayt University entrance exam, while fairly assessing a candidate's genuine understanding and abilities. This requires a nuanced judgment that distinguishes between legitimate preparation and prohibited actions. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the university's examination regulations and the specific guidelines provided for the Bayt University entrance exam. This approach prioritizes adherence to established rules, ensuring that all candidates are evaluated on a level playing field. The regulatory framework for university entrance exams typically emphasizes originality and prohibits the use of unauthorized materials or assistance. Therefore, a candidate who has demonstrably used prior exam materials or solutions without explicit permission would be in violation of these regulations. The ethical justification rests on fairness, academic honesty, and the principle that the exam is designed to measure an individual's acquired knowledge and aptitude, not their ability to access or reproduce pre-existing answers. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the candidate's application solely based on the suspicion of prior access without concrete evidence or a clear violation of the exam's stated rules. This could lead to an unfair exclusion and damage the university's reputation for impartiality. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the potential for academic misconduct, thereby compromising the integrity of the entrance exam and potentially admitting students who have not met the required academic standards through legitimate means. This undermines the value of the degree awarded by the university. A third incorrect approach would be to apply a penalty that is disproportionate to the offense, such as permanent disqualification for a minor or unintentional infraction, without considering the possibility of a warning or a requirement for re-examination under stricter conditions, if the regulations permit such flexibility. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Consulting the official examination regulations and guidelines of Bayt University. 2. Gathering all available evidence regarding the candidate's preparation and any suspected misconduct. 3. Applying the regulations impartially and consistently to the specific facts of the case. 4. If a violation is confirmed, determining the appropriate course of action as prescribed by the regulations, which might range from a warning to disqualification. 5. Documenting the entire process and the decision made. Question 8. The review process indicates a potential discrepancy in the submitted academic transcripts for an applicant to Bayt University's engineering program, specifically concerning the grading scale used in a previous institution. What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure fairness and uphold the integrity of the admissions process? Option A. Accept the transcript at face value, assuming the applicant has accurately represented their academic achievements, and proceed with the admission decision. Option B. Conduct a thorough investigation to verify the grading scale and its equivalence to Bayt University standards, seeking clarification from the applicant and the previous institution if necessary, before making a final decision. Option C. Request the applicant to retake relevant examinations to demonstrate their proficiency under all Bayt University's grading system. Option D. Immediately reject the application due to the unverified grading scale, as it introduces uncertainty into the evaluation of academic merit. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough investigation to verify the grading scale and its equivalence to all Bayt University standards, seeking clarification from the applicant and the previous institution if necessary, before making a final decision. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge in academic integrity and the ethical responsibilities of university admissions. The core issue is balancing the university's commitment to fair and merit-based admissions with the need to address potential irregularities that could undermine the process. The review process has flagged a potential discrepancy, requiring a careful and principled response that upholds the standards of all Bayt University. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation into the flagged discrepancy. This means gathering all relevant documentation, seeking clarification from the applicant and relevant university departments, and applying the established admission criteria consistently. This approach is ethically sound and aligns with the principles of fairness and due process expected in academic institutions. It respects the applicant's right to a fair evaluation while safeguarding the integrity of the admissions process. Regulatory frameworks for university admissions, while not explicitly detailed here for all Bayt University, universally emphasize transparency, fairness, and adherence to stated criteria. An incorrect approach would be to immediately reject the application based solely on the initial flag, without further investigation. This fails to provide the applicant with due process and could lead to an unjust outcome if the discrepancy is explainable or a misunderstanding. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of diligence and a premature judgment. Another incorrect approach would be to overlook the discrepancy entirely, assuming it is minor or inconsequential. This compromises the integrity of the admissions process and could set a precedent for laxity, potentially allowing unqualified candidates to be admitted or creating an unfair advantage for some applicants over others. This violates the principle of equal treatment and adherence to admission standards. Professionals in university admission should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes evidence-based judgment, adherence to established policies, and ethical considerations. This involves 1. Acknowledging and documenting any concerns raised. 2. Initiating a structured investigation to gather facts. 3. Applying university admission criteria objectively. 4. Providing opportunities for clarification or explanation from the applicant. 5. Making a final decision based on the comprehensive findings and university regulations. Question 9. What factors determine the most effective and ethically sound preparation strategy for the all Bayt University entrance examination? Option A. Focusing solely on general academic knowledge without reference to the specific university's curriculum. Option B. Exclusive reliance on memorizing answers from unofficial online forums. Option C. Prioritization of learning advanced topics not explicitly mentioned in the official syllabus. Option D. Adherence to the official university syllabus and analysis of past examination papers. The correct answer is D. Adherence to the official university syllabus and analysis of past examination papers. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate not only a foundational understanding of the all Bayt University's entrance examination process, but also the ability to critically evaluate different methods of preparation. The challenge lies in identifying the most effective and ethically sound approach to exam preparation within the specific context of this university's requirements, avoiding superficial or potentially misleading strategies. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between genuine preparation and methods that might circumvent or misrepresent an applicant's true capabilities. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of the official all Bayt University entrance exam syllabus and past papers. This method is correct because it directly aligns with the university's stated examination objectives and content. By focusing on the prescribed curriculum and the types of questions previously asked, applicants can tailor their study efforts to meet the specific academic standards and knowledge domains assessed by the university. This approach is ethically sound as it emphasizes genuine learning and preparation, reflecting the applicant's commitment to academic rigor and honesty. It adheres to the implicit ethical guideline of presenting one's own merit without undue external influence or misrepresentation. An incorrect approach would be to solely rely on memorizing answers from unofficial online forums. This is professionally unacceptable because it bypasses the understanding of underlying concepts and principles, focusing instead on rote memorization of specific answers that may not be relevant to the actual exam or may be outdated. This fails to demonstrate true academic competence and can lead to misrepresentation of an applicant's knowledge. Furthermore, it disregards the university's intent to assess analytical and critical thinking skills. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize learning advanced topics not covered in the official syllabus. This is professionally unacceptable as it demonstrates a misunderstanding of the exam's scope and purpose. Resources and time are better allocated to mastering the core material specified by the university. Diverting focus to extraneous subjects indicates a lack of strategic preparation and potentially a misjudgment of what the examiners are looking for, leading to inefficient use of study time and a failure to meet the exam's specific requirements. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of available preparation resources against the official examination guidelines. Professionals should first identify the authoritative sources of information regarding the exam, e.g., university website, official syllabus, past papers. They should then assess how each preparation method aligns with these authoritative sources, prioritizing methods that promote deep understanding of the required content and skills. Ethical considerations, such as honesty and the accurate representation of one's abilities, should be paramount in selecting a preparation strategy. Question 10. The control framework reveals a proctor reporting a suspected instance of a candidate receiving unauthorized assistance during the Bayt University entrance examination. According to the university's internal regulations for entrance examinations, what is the most appropriate initial course of action to ensure both academic integrity and fairness to the candidate? Option A. Report the incident to the university administration without further immediate action, deferring all decision-making to higher authorities. Option B. Document the proctor's report, inform the candidate of the allegation, and proceed with the examination while initiating a formal investigation according to university procedures. Option C. Immediately confiscate the candidate's examination materials and disqualify them from the exam pending a review by the examination committee. Option D. Issue a verbal warning to the candidate and allow them to continue the examination, assuming the assistance was minor and unintentional. The correct answer is C. Immediately confiscate the candidate's examination materials and disqualify them from the exam pending a review by the examination committee. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to academic integrity and the application of university regulations during the entrance examination process. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need to uphold the integrity of the examination with the ethical obligation to treat all candidates fairly, and to ensure that the examination process itself is free from bias or undue influence. Careful judgment is required to interpret and apply the Bayt University's specific entrance exam regulations to a situation involving potential external assistance. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation of the alleged irregularity, strictly adhering to the procedures outlined in the Bayt University's entrance exam regulations. This approach prioritizes fairness to the candidate by allowing them an opportunity to respond to the allegations and ensuring that any disciplinary action is based on concrete evidence and established university rules. The regulatory justification lies in the university's commitment to a fair and transparent examination process, as mandated by its internal statutes and guidelines for entrance examinations. Ethically, this approach upholds the principle of due process and the presumption of innocence until proven otherwise. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the candidate based solely on suspicion or the word of a proctor without a formal investigation. This fails to adhere to the university's procedural safeguards for handling alleged academic misconduct, potentially leading to an unjust outcome, and violating the candidate's right to a fair hearing as implicitly guaranteed by the university's regulatory framework. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the allegation altogether, which undermines the integrity of the examination process and signals a lack of commitment to upholding academic standards, thereby contravening the university's stated objectives for its entrance examinations. A third incorrect approach might involve applying a penalty that is disproportionate to the alleged offense, again failing to follow the established disciplinary procedures, and potentially creating a precedent that is inconsistent with the university's regulatory intent. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific regulations governing the Bayt University entrance exam. This involves identifying the precise rules concerning academic integrity, prohibited conduct, and the procedures for investigating and adjudicating alleged violations. The next step is to gather all relevant facts objectively, including statements from witnesses and any evidence presented. Based on this factual assessment, the professional must then apply the university's regulations to determine if a violation has occurred, and if so, what the appropriate sanction should be, always ensuring that the process is fair, transparent, and consistent with established procedures. Question 11. Market research demonstrates that influential individuals within the community often seek to advocate for specific candidates applying to Bayt University. In such a scenario, what is the most ethically and regulatorily sound approach for the university's admissions committee when reviewing an application that has been directly recommended by a prominent figure, or the recommendation implies a desire for preferential consideration beyond standard evaluation criteria? Option A. Directly inform the influential figure that their recommendation cannot be considered due to university policy, and then proceed with the standard evaluation. Option B. Strictly adhere to the university's established admission criteria and policies, documenting the request and the university's commitment to impartial evaluation, without allowing the recommendation to influence the decision-making process. Option C. Discreetly adjust the applicant's evaluation in subjective areas to subtly accommodate the recommendation, ensuring the changes are not overtly detectable. Option D. Ignore the recommendation entirely and proceed with the evaluation as if no external input was received, without any formal acknowledgement or documentation of the request. Correct answer is B. Strictly adhere to the university's established admission criteria and policies, documenting the request and the university's commitment to impartial evaluation, without allowing the recommendation to influence the decision-making process. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge in navigating the ethical and regulatory landscape of university admissions, specifically concerning the influence of external parties on the selection process. The Bayt University entrance exam, like any reputable academic institution, is bound by its own internal regulations and the broader ethical principles governing fair and merit-based admissions. The challenge lies in distinguishing between legitimate support and undue influence, ensuring that all applicants are evaluated on their own merits and qualifications, free from bias or preferential treatment. The correct approach involves a rigorous adherence to the university's established admission criteria and a proactive stance against any form of external pressure that could compromise the integrity of the selection process. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principle of fairness and the regulatory requirement for transparent and equitable admissions. Specifically, the university's internal guidelines, which would likely emphasize academic merit, standardized test scores, and potentially interviews, must be the sole determinants of admission. Any deviation from these criteria, especially when influenced by external parties, would violate the spirit of meritocracy and could lead to accusations of favoritism or corruption, undermining the university's reputation and the value of its degrees. An incorrect approach would be to yield to the request of the influential figure. This would represent a direct violation of the university's admission policies and ethical standards. By allowing external influence to dictate admission decisions, the university compromises its commitment to selecting the most qualified candidates based on objective criteria. This action could lead to the admission of less qualified students, potentially impacting the academic environment and the overall quality of education. Furthermore, it sets a dangerous precedent, encouraging further attempts at undue influence and eroding trust in the fairness of the admissions process. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the request without taking any documented action. While this might seem like a passive way to avoid direct involvement, it fails to address the potential for future attempts at influence and does not establish a clear boundary. A responsible academic institution must have a clear policy and procedure for handling such situations, which includes documenting the request and the university's response. Failing to do so leaves the institution vulnerable and signals a lack of robust governance. A third incorrect approach would be to attempt to subtly accommodate the request without overtly violating the rules. This could involve giving the recommended candidate a slightly higher score in an area that is subjective or less critical, or offering them an additional, non-standard interview. This is ethically problematic as it still involves preferential treatment and undermines the principle of equal opportunity. It is a form of deception that, if discovered, would severely damage the university's credibility. The professional decision-making process in such a situation requires a clear understanding of the university's admission regulations and ethical code. Professionals should first identify the nature of the request and its potential to influence the impartial evaluation of candidates. They must then consult the relevant university policies and guidelines. If the request appears to be an attempt at undue influence, the professional should document the interaction and escalate it to the appropriate authority within the university, such as the admissions committee or a designated ethics officer. The response should be firm, polite, and clearly state the university's commitment to fair and merit-based admissions without engaging in any form of compromise. Question 12. The control framework reveals that a candidate applying for the Bayt University entrance exam has submitted academic transcripts that appear to have minor discrepancies compared to their stated qualifications. The candidate's family has significant influence within the community, and there is an implicit expectation from influential individuals to ensure this candidate's admission. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions officer responsible for reviewing this application? Option A. Advise the candidate to withdraw their application and reapply in a subsequent year after rectifying the discrepancies in their academic records, while assuring them of future consideration if the records are corrected. Option B. Reject the application outright due to the discrepancies, without further investigation or consideration, and inform the candidate and their family of the strict adherence to admission criteria. Option C. Proceed with admitting the candidate after a brief internal discussion with a senior administrator, emphasizing the candidate's potential and the family's influence to avoid potential repercussions. Option D. Initiate a thorough verification process for the submitted academic transcripts, document all findings, and present the case to the admissions committee for a decision based strictly on the university's established admission policies and the verified evidence. Correct answer is C. Proceed with admitting the candidate after a brief internal discussion with a senior administrator, emphasizing the candidate's potential and the family's influence to avoid potential repercussions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between academic integrity and the pressure to admit students. The university entrance exam, particularly for a prestigious institution like Bayt University, demands a rigorous and fair selection process. Misrepresenting a candidate's qualifications or fabricating evidence to meet admission criteria undermines the credibility of the entire examination system and the university itself. The control framework in this context is designed to ensure that only genuinely qualified candidates are admitted, upholding standards and preventing undue influence or bias. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the established admission criteria and the documented evidence of a candidate's performance. This means rejecting any application that does not meet the defined academic thresholds, regardless of external pressures or personal connections. This approach is ethically sound and regulatorily compliant because it upholds the principles of fairness, transparency, and meritocracy, which are fundamental to any educational institution's admission process. It aligns with the implicit regulatory expectation that entrance examinations serve as objective measures of a candidate's readiness for higher education. An incorrect approach would be to manipulate or overlook discrepancies in the candidate's academic records to facilitate admission. This action constitutes a breach of academic integrity and potentially violates internal university regulations regarding admissions and record keeping. It introduces an element of bias and unfairness, disadvantaging other deserving candidates who have met the requirements through legitimate means. Furthermore, such an action could be construed as a form of academic fraud, with severe reputational and legal consequences for both the individual involved and the university. Another incorrect approach would be to seek an exemption or special consideration for the candidate without a valid, documented reason that aligns with university policy. This bypasses the established control framework and creates an arbitrary exception, undermining the consistency and fairness of the admission process. It suggests favoritism rather than objective assessment, which is ethically problematic and likely contrary to the spirit, if not the letter, of the university's admission guidelines. The professional decision-making process in such a situation requires a commitment to ethical conduct and adherence to established procedures. Professionals should first thoroughly review the candidate's application against the official admission criteria. If there are discrepancies or unmet requirements, the professional must document these findings clearly. The next step is to communicate these findings to the relevant admissions committee or authority, presenting the facts objectively. The decision should then be made based on the established policies and regulations, without succumbing to external pressure or personal appeals. Transparency and accountability are paramount throughout this process. Question 13. The evaluation methodology shows a commitment to assessing not just factual recall, but also the applicant's capacity for critical analysis and synthesis of information. Considering this, which approach to preparing for and undertaking the Bayt University entrance examination best reflects this methodology? Option A. Concentrating on identifying common question patterns and practicing timed responses to maximize the number of questions answered, regardless of depth of understanding. Option B. Prioritizing in-depth understanding of core concepts and their application across different subjects, alongside developing analytical reasoning skills. Option C. Focusing primarily on memorizing a vast number of specific facts and dates across all subject areas to ensure broad coverage. Option D. Relying heavily on external study guides that offer simplified summaries of topics, without engaging with original source material or complex problem solving. The correct answer is B. Prioritizing in-depth understanding of core concepts and their application across different subjects, alongside developing analytical reasoning skills. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of Bayt University's entrance examination process, specifically concerning the evaluation methodology. The challenge lies in discerning which approach to the examination best aligns with the university's stated objectives and regulatory framework, which are implicitly geared towards assessing a broad range of academic and critical thinking skills relevant to higher education. Careful judgment is required to avoid superficial interpretations or approaches that prioritize rote memorization over genuine comprehension and analytical ability. The correct approach involves a comprehensive engagement with the examination material, focusing on understanding the underlying concepts and their interrelationships. This approach is right because it directly addresses the likely intent of a university entrance exam, which is to identify candidates capable of critical thinking, problem solving, and applying knowledge, rather than simply recalling facts. This aligns with the implicit regulatory and ethical expectation of educational institutions to select students who are academically prepared and possess the potential for success in their chosen fields of study. Such an approach fosters a deeper learning experience and prepares students for the rigors of university-level coursework. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on memorizing specific facts without understanding their context or application is professionally unacceptable. This fails to meet the implicit regulatory expectation of assessing genuine academic aptitude and can lead to the selection of students who may struggle with the analytical demands of higher education. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes superficial engagement or guessing based on limited information is also professionally unsound. This undermines the integrity of the examination process and the university's commitment to academic excellence. It fails to ethically represent the candidate's true capabilities and can lead to misallocation of resources and opportunities. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the objectives of the assessment. Candidates should consider what skills and knowledge the examination is designed to measure. They should then adopt a strategy that actively engages with the material, seeks to understand underlying principles, and applies knowledge in a thoughtful manner. This involves critical analysis, synthesis of information, and a commitment to demonstrating genuine comprehension, rather than merely fulfilling the minimum requirements of the task. Question 14. The performance metrics show that candidate X excelled in the essay component of the Bayt University entrance exam, demonstrating exceptional analytical skills and a nuanced understanding of the subject matter, but scored slightly below the average in the multiple-choice section. Which approach best aligns with the evaluation framework for the Bayt University entrance exam? Option A. Disqualify candidate X due to the below-average score in the multiple-choice section, as this metric is considered a primary determinant of success in the entrance exam. Option B. Prioritize the essay's qualitative strengths, recognizing its demonstration of critical thinking and subject mastery, and weigh it appropriately against the multiple-choice score within the university's holistic assessment guidelines. Option C. Focus exclusively on the multiple-choice score as the definitive indicator of a candidate's aptitude, disregarding the essay's qualitative insights. Option D. Compare candidate X's performance solely against the average scores of candidates from other universities to determine their suitability. The correct answer is B. Prioritize the essay's qualitative strengths, recognizing its demonstration of critical thinking and subject mastery, and weigh it appropriately against the multiple-choice score within the university's holistic assessment guidelines. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to interpret and apply the specific academic regulations of Bayt University to a situation involving student performance. The challenge lies in understanding the nuances of the university's entrance exam framework, particularly concerning the criteria for evaluating candidates and the acceptable methods for presenting such evaluations. A deep understanding of the university's academic policies and ethical guidelines for admissions is paramount to avoid misinterpretations that could lead to unfair assessments or procedural errors. The correct approach involves a comparative analysis of the performance metrics against the established criteria for the Bayt University entrance exam, focusing on qualitative aspects of candidate suitability rather than purely quantitative measures. This aligns with the university's likely emphasis on a holistic evaluation, which may include assessing critical thinking, problem-solving abilities, and alignment with the university's academic ethos, as implicitly defined by its entrance exam structure. The regulatory framework for university entrance exams typically prioritizes fairness, transparency, and adherence to stated admission criteria. Therefore, a method that directly compares observed performance against these defined criteria while acknowledging the qualitative dimensions is the most ethically and procedurally sound. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on a single, isolated metric without considering its context within the broader evaluation framework would be a failure to adhere to the comprehensive assessment principles likely embedded in the university's regulations. This could lead to an incomplete or biased evaluation. Another incorrect approach that relies on external, non-university sanctioned benchmarks or comparisons would violate the principle of jurisdictional integrity, as it would introduce external standards not recognized by Bayt University's entrance exam guidelines. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the specific regulatory environment governing the admissions process. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes easily quantifiable data over potentially more insightful qualitative indicators, without a clear justification within the university's framework, risks overlooking crucial aspects of a candidate's potential, thereby failing to uphold the spirit of a thorough entrance examination. The professional decision-making process should involve first thoroughly understanding the specific regulations and guidelines of the Bayt University entrance exam. This includes identifying the stated objectives of the exam and the criteria used for candidate evaluation. Subsequently, one must analyze the available performance metrics in light of these established criteria, considering both quantitative and qualitative aspects. The decision should be guided by the principle of fairness and the university's stated admission policies, ensuring that the evaluation is comprehensive and directly relevant to the entrance requirements. Question 15. Quality control measures reveal that some questions in the upcoming Bayt University entrance examination may inadvertently reflect a specific interpretation of Islamic jurisprudence that is not universally held within the broader Muslim community, potentially impacting candidates from diverse backgrounds. The university's examination regulations emphasize fairness, objectivity, and assessment based solely on the prescribed curriculum. Which of the following actions best upholds these principles? Option A. Convene an independent committee of scholars with diverse jurisprudential background to review the question items for bias and recommend revisions to ensure neutrality and adherence to the syllabus. Option B. Proceed with the examination as planned, assuming candidates are sufficiently knowledgeable to understand different interpretations and that the questions are testing general knowledge. Option C. Immediately remove all questions related to Islamic jurisprudence, even if they are core to the curriculum, to avoid any potential controversy. Option D. Instruct the original question setters to make minor edits to the disputed questions based on their personal judgment without external review. Correct answer is A. Convene an independent committee of scholars with diverse jurisprudential backgrounds to review the questioned items for bias and recommend revisions to ensure neutrality and adherence to the syllabus. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge in maintaining academic integrity and ensuring a fair assessment process for prospective students at Bayt University. The core issue revolves around the potential for bias in the examination materials, which could unfairly advantage or disadvantage certain candidates. Adhering strictly to the university's established examination guidelines and the principles of equitable assessment is paramount. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the examination content by an independent committee, focusing on the alignment of questions with the declared syllabus and the absence of any culturally or religiously biased material that could be specific to the Bayt University context. This ensures that the examination is a true measure of a candidate's knowledge and aptitude, free from external influences, and in compliance with the university's commitment to fair evaluation. This aligns with the ethical obligation to provide a level playing field for all applicants. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the concerns without proper investigation, potentially perpetuating bias and undermining the credibility of the entrance exam. Another incorrect approach would be to make arbitrary changes to the questions without a systematic review process, which could introduce new errors or inconsistencies. Furthermore, relying solely on the subjective opinion of the question setters without independent verification fails to address the potential for unconscious bias and deviates from best practices in quality assurance for academic assessments. Professionals in this situation should employ a systematic decision-making process that prioritizes fairness, transparency, and adherence to established university regulations. This involves 1. Acknowledging and documenting the concern. 2. Initiating an independent review process as per university policy. 3. Evaluating the evidence objectively. 4. Implementing corrective actions based on the review findings, ensuring all changes are documented and justified. 5. Communicating the process and outcomes appropriately to relevant stakeholders. Question 16. Governance review demonstrates that a prominent alumnus has contacted the university administration with suggestions for specific topics to be included in the upcoming entrance examination for Bayt University, citing a desire to ensure candidates possess a particular skill set they believe is crucial for future success. This alumnus has significant influence within the university's donor community. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the university administration to ensure the integrity and fairness of the entrance examination? Option A. Formally acknowledge the alumnus's suggestions and forward them to the relevant academic department responsible for examination content development for consideration within the established review and approval process. Option B. Directly incorporate the alumnus's suggested topics into the examination without further review to maintain a positive relationship with a key donor. Option C. Agree to a private meeting with the alumnus to discuss the specific questions they propose to gauge their suitability for the exam. Option D. Politely decline the alumnus's suggestions, stating that the examination content is confidential and determined solely by the academic faculty. The correct answer is A. Formally acknowledge the alumnus's suggestions and forward them to the relevant academic department responsible for examination content development for consideration within the established review and approval process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and responding to external pressures that could compromise the fairness of the Bayt University entrance exam. The university's commitment to meritocracy and equitable opportunity for all applicants is paramount. Any deviation from established examination protocols, especially those influenced by external parties without proper institutional oversight, risks undermining public trust and the credibility of the admissions process. Careful judgment is required to navigate these pressures while upholding the university's core values and regulatory obligations. The correct approach involves a rigorous adherence to the established examination regulations and guidelines of Bayt University. This means ensuring that all examination procedures, from question setting to invigilation and grading, are conducted impartially and in accordance with the university's internal policies and any relevant national educational standards. The university's governance framework likely mandates transparency, fairness, and the prevention of undue influence. Therefore, any request that deviates from these established procedures, particularly one that suggests preferential treatment or the alteration of examination content based on external suggestions without a formal, documented, and approved process, must be handled with extreme caution and likely rejected if it bypasses institutional checks and balances. This approach aligns with the ethical imperative to ensure a level playing field for all candidates and to maintain the integrity of the academic selection process. An incorrect approach would be to accede to the external request without proper institutional review and approval. This could manifest as directly incorporating suggested questions without vetting them through the standard academic committees or altering the examination format based on informal suggestions. Such actions would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. They would violate the principles of fairness and equal opportunity, potentially creating an unfair advantage for certain candidates and disadvantaging others. This also undermines the authority of the examination board and the established academic governance structures of Bayt University. Furthermore, it could expose the university to accusations of bias and corruption, damaging its reputation and the value of its degrees. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and ethical principles. This involves 1. Identifying the core issue. Is the request aligned with university regulations and ethical standards? 2. Consulting relevant policies. Reviewing the university's examination regulations, code of conduct, and any specific guidelines pertaining to external interactions. 3. Seeking internal consultation. Discussing the request with relevant academic and administrative departments, such as the Examination Committee, Academic Affairs Office, or Legal Counsel, to ensure a collective and informed decision. 4. Documenting all communications and decisions, maintaining a clear record of the request, the deliberations, and the final decision. 5. Communicating the decision clearly and professionally, explaining the rationale behind the decision, particularly if the request is declined, by referencing established procedures and principles. Question 17. Operational review demonstrates that a significant number of applicants for the Bayt University entrance exam have expressed concerns regarding the perceived difficulty and potential cultural bias in certain question sets, suggesting a possible disparity in preparation or understanding across different applicant backgrounds. The university's examination committee is tasked with addressing these concerns while maintaining the integrity and validity of the entrance examination. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Implement minor, superficial edits to the examination questions based on general feedback, without a thorough analysis of the underlying issues. Option B. Immediately withdraw and reissue the examination with modified questions to appease applicant concerns, without a formal review process. Option C. Issue a public statement dismissing the concerns as subjective and unfounded, and proceed with the examination as scheduled. Option D. Initiate a comprehensive review of the question examination materials by an independent panel of subject matter experts and educational assessment specialists to identify any objective evidence of bias or undue difficulty, and propose evidence-based adjustments if warranted. The correct answer is D. Initiate a comprehensive review of the question examination materials by an independent panel of subject matter experts and educational assessment specialists to identify any objective evidence of bias or undue difficulty, and propose evidence-based adjustments if warranted. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity and fairness during a high-stakes university entrance examination. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need to uphold the examination's validity with the potential for unintended consequences or misinterpretations of established procedures. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any action taken is both procedurally sound and ethically defensible, aligning with the principles of all Bayt University's academic standards. The correct approach involves a systematic and transparent review of the examination materials and procedures, focusing on identifying any potential biases or inconsistencies that could disadvantage specific groups of applicants. This aligns with the university's commitment to providing an equitable and merit-based assessment. Specifically, it adheres to the implicit ethical guidelines of fairness and impartiality expected in any academic evaluation process, ensuring that all candidates are assessed on a level playing field. The focus is on proactive identification and correction of systemic issues rather than reactive punitive measures. An incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or unsubstantiated claims without rigorous investigation would be professionally unacceptable. This fails to uphold the principle of due process and could lead to unfair accusations or the implementation of unnecessary, disruptive changes. Such an approach risks undermining the credibility of the examination process and eroding trust among applicants and faculty. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the concerns outright without any form of review. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a disregard for potential issues that could compromise the integrity of the entrance exam. Ethically, this is a failure to act responsibly and to ensure the fairness of the assessment process. A further incorrect approach might involve implementing immediate, drastic changes to the examination format based on preliminary, unverified information. This could create confusion, disadvantage candidates who have prepared for the established format, and disrupt the examination's intended purpose. It prioritizes a hasty reaction over a considered, evidence-based decision. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes evidence gathering, objective analysis, and adherence to established academic and ethical guidelines. This involves 1. Acknowledging and documenting any concerns raised. 2. Initiating a thorough, impartial review of the relevant examination materials and procedures. 3. Consulting with relevant stakeholders, if appropriate, to gather further insights. 4. Basing any decisions on objective findings and established university policies. 5. Communicating any changes or findings transparently and in a timely manner. Question 18. The control framework reveals that applicants preparing for the Bayt University entrance examination must adhere to specific ethical guidelines. Which of the following preparation strategies best exemplifies adherence to these guidelines and ensures a fair assessment of an applicant's capabilities? Option A. Collaborating with friends to create a study group that aims to guess potential exam questions based on rumors circulating among applicants. Option B. Engaging a tutor who claims to have insider knowledge and can provide specific topics and question types likely to appear on the exam. Option C. Utilizing past examination papers and official study guides provided by Bayt University to understand the scope and format of the exam. Option D. Purchasing access to a private online forum where past candidates claim to share leaked questions and answers from previous year's exams. The correct answer is C. Utilizing past examination papers and official study guides provided by Bayt University to understand the scope and format of the exam. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of academic integrity and ethical conduct expected within the context of university entrance examinations, specifically at Bayt University. The core of the challenge lies in distinguishing between acceptable and unacceptable methods of preparation, ensuring that the applicant's knowledge is a result of genuine learning rather than illicit means. Careful judgment is required to identify practices that undermine the fairness and validity of the examination process. The correct approach involves utilizing officially sanctioned study materials and preparation resources provided or recommended by Bayt University. This approach represents best professional practice because it aligns directly with the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. By adhering to these official resources, applicants demonstrate respect for the examination's purpose, which is to evaluate their acquired knowledge and potential. This method ensures a level playing field for all candidates, preventing any unfair advantage gained through unauthorized means. Ethically, it upholds the principle of honesty and integrity in academic pursuits. An incorrect approach that relies on obtaining leaked examination questions is professionally unacceptable. This practice constitutes academic dishonesty and a severe ethical breach. It directly violates the principles of fairness and meritocracy that underpin any educational institution. Such an action not only compromises the integrity of the entrance exam, but also devalues the efforts of honest candidates. It undermines the university's ability to accurately assess applicants' capabilities and can lead to the admission of unqualified individuals, ultimately harming the academic standards of Bayt University. Another incorrect approach, such as purchasing pre-written essays or answers for the examination, is also professionally unacceptable. This falls under the umbrella of plagiarism and academic fraud. It misrepresents the applicant's own abilities and knowledge, creating a false impression of competence. This practice erodes trust in the educational system and is a direct violation of the ethical standards expected of all students and prospective students. It prevents the university from fulfilling its mandate of identifying genuine talent and potential. A third incorrect approach, which involves seeking unauthorized assistance from current students or faculty to gain insights into the examination content, is similarly professionally unacceptable. While collaboration in study can be beneficial, seeking specific information about the examination content through unofficial channels constitutes an unfair advantage. This practice bypasses the intended assessment process and creates an inequitable situation for other applicants. It violates the spirit of fair competition and academic integrity that Bayt University upholds. The professional reasoning process for applicants in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's examination regulations and ethical guidelines. Applicants should prioritize legitimate study methods, focusing on understanding the syllabus and utilizing approved resources. When in doubt about the appropriateness of a particular preparation method, the professional decision-making process dictates seeking clarification from the university's admissions office or relevant academic departments. This proactive approach ensures adherence to the highest standards of academic integrity and ethical conduct. Question 19. The monitoring system demonstrates that a significant number of recent entrance exam questions for Bayt University have been flagged for potential issues related to their generation methodology. Considering the need for both originality and academic rigor, which of the following approaches to generating new exam questions would be most appropriate for ensuring the integrity and effectiveness of the Bayt University entrance exam? Option A. Relying on external question banks that offer a wide variety of question types, without a thorough review process to ensure their suitability and alignment with the specific requirements of the Bayt University entrance exam. Option B. Prioritizing the creation of questions that are entirely novel in their phrasing and structure, even if they deviate significantly from established academic concepts or the typical scope of the university's entrance examination. Option C. Focusing on generating questions that are superficially different from previous exams by making minor alterations to existing question formats or topics, without a deep consideration of their assessment value. Option D. A comparative analysis of various question generation techniques, evaluating their potential to produce original questions that are also academically relevant and aligned with the university's curriculum and assessment objectives. The correct answer is D. A comparative analysis of various question generation techniques, evaluating their potential to produce original questions that are also academically relevant and aligned with the university's curriculum and assessment objectives. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires the applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of university entrance examinations, specifically within the context of Bayt University. The core of the challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate method for generating relevant and effective questions that align with the university's admission standards and the purpose of an entrance exam. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between approaches that genuinely assess a candidate's readiness and those that might be superficial, irrelevant, or misaligned with educational objectives. The correct approach involves a comparative analysis of potential question generation methods, focusing on their alignment with the university's specific entrance exam requirements. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the need to create questions that are not only original but also relevant to the academic disciplines tested by Bayt University. By comparing different methods, one can evaluate their effectiveness in assessing a candidate's knowledge, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills in a way that is fair and indicative of their potential for success at the university. This aligns with the ethical responsibility of an examination body to ensure that assessments are valid, reliable, and serve their intended purpose of selecting qualified candidates. An approach that focuses solely on generating questions that are different, without considering their relevance to the curriculum or assessment objectives, is incorrect. This could lead to questions that are obscure, trivial, or do not accurately measure a candidate's preparedness for university-level study. Similarly, an approach that prioritizes novelty over substance, or that relies on superficial variations of existing question types without deeper conceptual grounding, fails to meet the rigorous standards expected of a university entrance examination. Such methods risk producing assessments that are not a true reflection of a candidate's abilities and could lead to unfair selection outcomes, violating ethical principles of fairness and meritocracy. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of potential question generation strategies. This includes considering the specific learning outcomes and subject matter covered by the entrance exam, the desired level of cognitive complexity, and the need for originality and fairness. A comparative analysis, as advocated in the correct approach, allows for a reasoned selection of the most effective and ethically sound method for developing assessment items that will accurately and equitably evaluate candidates. Question 20. The audit findings indicate a potential inconsistency in the application of the scoring rubric for the Bayt University entrance exam, with some examiners reportedly deviating from the prescribed guidelines. Which of the following actions best represents the appropriate response to ensure the integrity of the admissions process? Option A. Proceed with admissions based on the current scores, but implement additional interviews for all candidates to compensate for potential scoring inaccuracies. Option B. Immediately reevaluate all submitted exam papers using a standardized, independent scoring mechanism to identify and rectify any scoring errors, and review the examiner's adherence to the rubric. Option C. Disregard the audit findings as minor procedural variations that do not significantly impact the overall admission outcomes. Option D. Issue a directive to all examiners to strictly adhere to the rubric in future exams without reviewing past scoring. Correct answer is B. Immediately reevaluate all submitted exam papers using a standardized, independent scoring mechanism to identify and rectify any scoring errors, and review the examiner's adherence to the rubric. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential discrepancy in the university's adherence to its own academic integrity policies, specifically concerning the process of admitting students based on entrance exam performance. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of the university's internal regulations, ethical considerations regarding fairness and transparency in admissions, and the potential impact on the reputation and credibility of Bayt University. The admissions committee must navigate the tension between upholding established procedures and addressing any perceived irregularities without compromising the integrity of the selection process. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the specific audit findings against the documented admission criteria and procedures outlined in the Bayt University entrance exam regulations. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the identified issues by comparing them to the established framework. It ensures that any decision made is grounded in the university's own rules, promoting fairness and consistency. Adhering to the university's regulatory framework is paramount in maintaining trust and ensuring that the admissions process is perceived as equitable by all prospective students and stakeholders. This aligns with the ethical principle of accountability and the regulatory requirement to operate within established guidelines. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the audit findings without a proper investigation, citing the need to maintain admission timelines. This is ethically and regulatorily flawed because it prioritizes expediency over due diligence and adherence to established procedures. It risks overlooking genuine policy violations and could lead to unfair admissions decisions, undermining the university's commitment to academic integrity. Another incorrect approach would be to unilaterally alter admission criteria based on the audit findings, without following the university's established policy amendment procedures. This is problematic as it bypasses the formal governance structures designed to ensure that changes to academic policies are carefully considered and approved, potentially leading to inconsistencies and a lack of transparency. A third incorrect approach would be to focus solely on the quantitative scores of applicants without considering the qualitative aspects or potential procedural deviations highlighted by the audit. This is flawed because it ignores the possibility that the audit findings might point to systemic issues in the examination or evaluation process, which could affect the validity of the scores themselves. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, fully understanding the nature and scope of the audit findings. Second, meticulously reviewing the relevant university regulations and policies. Third, gathering all necessary information and evidence to assess the findings. Fourth, consulting with relevant university departments or committees as needed. And finally, making a decision that is consistent with the university's regulatory framework, ethical principles, and commitment to fairness and transparency.